the cab of the 1167 Vario MT. I'm visiting here with Billy as he applies his anhydrous. Billy, what do you like about using anhydrous as your fertilizer for corn?
Well, I've always been to the belief that anhydrous will, it stays longer because it has to change forms versus like a liquid or something. So we're putting it on. We'll be planting this in 2 weeks. If I was going to do liquid, I'd feel like I would need to wait for another month to put it down to be equivalent to it. And I got more than I can do in a month from now. But so this allows us to get this job done.
It would you have the double tanks. We can see one out here waiting to switch over. How many acres do you get out of a tank usually?
36, 37. And that's another reason anhydrous 82% nitrogen. Liquid would be 32. So requires almost 3 times as many gallons to do the same job in the field. But liquid nitrogen is a great form. People that do it and it does a great job. We use a lot of it well, that's all my nitrogen I put on my wheat. So we do a 2-shot program in a wheat with liquid 28, 32%.
So running a big 670 horsepower tractor like this, how many acres a day are you trying to cover with a 60-foot toolbar?
That's kind of a loaded question. If I had a very nice farm that a piece of chunk of land that was about 1,200 acres and pretty open, and we did that in one day with 4 applicators. Now I'm doing fields like this. This is a 30-acre field. A lot of little smaller patches of land right around this. This is going to take a lot longer to make it happen. Sure. But I'd say on average, 250, 300 acres a day, you ought to be able to do that. And in some days, I can do more than that, We didn't get started on that 1,200 acres until it was wet. We had to move there. It was probably truly 11:30 when we got started. We quit it at 12 o'clock at night, and we had done that amount. So if I could have started at 7, or well, we're gonna service. Let's realistically start about 8:30. Then it made a heck of a show if I had more land right there beside it. We probably easily done 1,500 acres. 400. Around 400 acres of applicator. So, but how far you're packing anhydrous makes some in that equation. But probably more like the size of the fields are gonna make a bigger determination of that.
Well, this tractor can definitely get up and go when you're in the wide open spaces. You're 1 year here in the seat now with this tractor. How have you liked it?
Oh, I really love the transmission that's on this one. We run quad track Deeres too, and they're great tractors. This one right here, I love the transmission. I like the way it goes across this field. We're getting ready to do some variation of the slope and dampness, and you'll watch the speed. Right now we're running 7.5, and I got a pretty good slope and hill right here in front of me. We may drop down to, could drop down to 6. I never touch the stick though. I've got it, set at 7.5. Well, depending on which one right there, got it set at 8.7 right now. It's trying to maintain that, but if it won't do it, if it's pulling too hard, it just slows down. But I don't shift any gears. It does it for me. It's very quiet. It's running right now at 1680. The tractor is very quiet, and that makes it a lot more fuel efficient. I'm probably it's probably 4 gallons less per hour than the equivalent tractor.
Definitely makes a difference with fuel prices today.
Oh yeah.
It's
but
amazing.
Right now, you see, I'm coming up on this big hill. It's pulled it down to 6. The motor RPM hadn't really changed any. So, I mean, you can load come up to like cross a ditch and then drop it down, going up a really steep hill. And that tractor, you don't have to downshift or anything. It may go down to 4 mile an hour for just a moment, but it drops down and comes right back. It's really nice, the transmission is.
Well, and also a lot of people always ask, you've got a 60-foot toolbar, 670 horse tractor, they want to see 80 feet out there. But, it puts it to work. You've got that loaded tank back there.
Well,
I've noticed when you're on hills that everything slows down.
I'm probably going deeper than most people. I like the tillage. We're on 20-inch centers, and I like running those shanks. It's down to the bow pattern, so that shank's probably going a good 10 inches, 8, maybe a little more actually. But I'm sucking it in the ground. Those coulters are raised up all the way, and you can see they're still penetrating almost to the hub. But it's we're putting them in the ground pretty deep. Well, you can see them where it's dropping the dirt off there. I hear you. I just unhook it there, Chico. Right there, pretty good.
Well, now we can see the switchover process here on the tanks. Here we can take a look at that setup with the knives and the coulters that Billy was talking about that put this down on the ground. We'll see they unhook the tanks here. The hoses connect the applicator to the wagon, and they'll just unhook this wagon and then switch over to the full one.
on this one, I just push the one run button, they call it. It kicks it in the AB line, and then, you know, lets the tool down.
Oh, that's handy.
Yes, it works very nice.
Well, it doesn't take very long to switch over.
You guys are really good. I mean, we've got a system, you know. Really helps.
So I know one thing.
Tuned in to each other.
I know one thing people always will ask is, you know, you got a 7R on the tanks instead of a smaller tractor. Is that just because that's the tractors you have, or is it easier to have that power to pull them through the
Well,
field?
that one right there. We have two. We got a small one that's with a bucket and a small front assist with a loader bucket. But and then we have this one that in case somebody gets stuck or they can pull out, or he gets wagon. We got a wagon caught yesterday in a low spot, and
It doesn't take much for those to sink.
no, and so we had unhooked the little tractor and run this one over, and so we like to have the two. The other one is handy having a loader on it. This would be an awful big loader tractor. Of course, it's a big tractor anyway, but pulling down the road, it's always nice to have extra weight for stopping. We could pull two anhydrous wagons with that tractor.
And I know you've got the hitches on the back that in years past you used to pull two tanks on the anhydrous bar. Is there that to slow you down to have two, or is it?
Well, it used to be that we had 1-inch dip tubes. The only way I could run at these kind of speeds was to have two wagons with 4 tanks, 4 hoses, because I couldn't get enough anhydrous out. We had cut all these tanks and put an 1.5-inch valve on them, and we're running 1.25-inch hoses, and that I could run 2 wagons, but the only advantage of that is I just do more acres. But these kind of fields right here, it's hardly, I couldn't take them down the road with the 2 tanks, so I'd have to drop one, move the hitch over to move one location to another. I still do it occasionally, not near as what I used to. But before I couldn't run but about 5 miles an hour. I mean, it had to be pretty warm outside to do that, 5 or 6 mile an hour. And I mean, now I can run, even at these, we're at, what are we, 60 degrees maybe?
Yep.
I can run probably 8.5 mile an hour with this one wagon, you know, 1 wagon, 2 tanks.
Have you, when I first started visiting your farm over 20 years ago, 450 horsepower tractor was the big tractor. Has the increased power on the 9RXs and the FENDT, has that allowed you to get more acres covered now, or?
Oh, sure. Yes. I mean, it allows me to be, I mean, of course, we're running about 7 mile an hour right now, but if it's a good flat out field, I'll be running 8.5 with this horsepower, and going as deep as I'm going. I'm busting up a lot of, you know, fractional pan, but where I used to have to run about 5.5 mile an hour, maybe tops of 6, and the conditions had to be good. We were applying the anhydrous the other day at, we started out, it was 32 degrees, and I don't know, 10 o'clock it was still 40. When you're talking about 40, you don't have much tank pressure. But I was still able to run with these tanks, the big openings I got, I was able to run 7.5 anyway, even at that kind of temperature, 8 mile an hour. I was exceeding, I'm using a Vision cooling. It's a cooler, but it's also a huge filter, but it tells me if I have plenty of anhydrous sitting there waiting for the flow meter to use. Right now, say it's showing the level that's in the tank, but more so over here, this number is showing low, that means it's not opening up many valves. Right now it's got 2 valves open. Now from 0 to 100 is 1 valve, and then so forth. It also tells me the level. If this thing goes to yellow, I know to be careful. I'd probably need to slow down, or if it goes to red, I need to stop. That I won't be applying the correct amount of anhydrous out to the end. You can have vapor and it'll spin the turbine, but that doesn't necessarily mean you're putting the nitrogen down. So when your tank gets low, used to be I didn't really have a good way of, the only thing I could do was to watch my pressure gauges when something had lights on. I could watch my pressure gauges if they bounce on it. They're turned off right now because we're swath controlling. I thought I had a little spot right here, but anyway, turn it back. I can turn that off and let you see it. I can watch those gauges, and when it gets low, it'll start shaking a little bit, but it wasn't a great means of how to check things. I never was 100% certain if I was getting low. Also, when you go up a hill, these tanks they're plumbed in the front. So if you're going up a steep hill, that tank can still have 10% in it, but not coming out the hoses, leaning up a steep hill. Now, this thing will let me, I can realize that. I can turn around and go down the hill. The lights will come on because it's picking it up and lets me know that.
That's a good
so
thing
it's a nice piece of equipment I've added to it. It's also a monster filter strainer. Anhydrous tanks are notorious of building rust during the winter when you're not using them, and then you'll choke them. We used to be out cleaning the strainers constantly on them. This there's a white tank back there. Well, it looks dirty right now, but that one in the middle back there, it'll hold about 2 or 3 coffee cans of rust before it's too much that it needs to be cleaned. So basically I can run the whole season and never clean the strainer.
Appreciate the ride. It's always interesting to learn what you're doing out here and see how the equipment works.
All righty. Well, have a great day.
All right.